Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Tom Stewart here. I'm Liz Trotter. Our guest today is Matt Ricketts, and this is Smart Business Moves.
Woo! Hey, Matt.
Hi.
I feel like it hasn't been that long since I saw you, but it actually has been quite a while.
We do this in February, probably.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
it's
so.
been a while.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we're going to be talking about this really cool movie called Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh,
Didn't they have like pods that
it
people were?
pods.
Yeah.
okay. I'm like,
Or
I
was
know
it-
there's a joke coming, but the light is terrible. Let me see if I can.
Where you at, Liz?
Not
Tell us
really.
where you're at.
I am at All Star Cleaning in Fort Collins, Colorado, at Laura Christian's place.
What you
Nice.
doing there?
Yeah, sales workshop. Listen, learn, and lead. How to basically close more sales.
There
Close
you
more
go.
sales in our industry. Yeah,
It's a sales workshop. How to make more money.
make more money, make it faster. We're just looking at their lead board, where not their lead board, their close board shows where they're sitting for the month, and it's the first good month they've had this year. So fingers crossed that things are turning around for a lot of different people.
Wow. So, is that like a thing? People sales been off this year?
A lot of people have had their sales be off. Most people have rebounded. January was one of the worst months that I had heard from so many people, uh, much worse than in previous years. But it's different all across the country. You know how that goes.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I guess it's a year-over-year thing too. If you had a really awesome year last year, it
Yeah,
feels like
it's even worse.
it's hard to be awesome all the time. I dropped the link to this. You guys are starting tomorrow, right?
We are. Yeah. We
But
just had somebody sign up for the live stream about 15 minutes ago, though. So we definitely
if
have room for live streams.
if I say yes live stream and click on that, I can like sign up like right now and be in the thick of it tomorrow when you guys start, right?
That's right. 9 o'clock mountain. 9 o'clock mountain.
Mountain time. And if anybody's going to be at Chicago
Yeah.
in a couple of
It's a
weeks
fun workshop.
at
It's a
the
lot of work, but
at the ISSA regional event, which is going to be the 9th. I should probably pull that up here. Got to get all this obligatory stuff out of the way, Matt.
It's all right. I'm excited. I wish I could make the AI thing.
We got to pay the bills. There's a regional event on the 9th. It's going to be at Gosha Barron's office. And if you've never been there, you need to go. It's a beautiful office. She moved in a couple of years ago, I guess. So I'm saying it's new. It's relatively new to my office. I've been here for a while, but like I've said before, if you've never been to Chicago and want to get a taste of some awesome food, go to Gosha's office. Their catering will blow your mind.
Yeah, last time was really good. They did. Yeah, I forgot about how good the food was that they threw down. That was good. They had
love it.
pizza, like the Chicago style pizza, the Chicago style sausages, and then like some other kind of like hot beefs. I mean, it was like all kind of Chicago food.
It was so good, though.
It was.
Yeah, really good.
For our vegan friends, they had some options too. They had some good pretzels and like a few other things. But
And those cupcakes.
cupcakes.
Never forgetting cupcakes.
It was pretty tasty.
So that's going to be on Sunday the 9th. And while you're there on the next day, Monday the 10th, we're going to be hosting a day-long workshop on artificial intelligence. And it's being hosted by the Maid Central team. We're going to be showing you tools that are out there available today, available to all of us, that you and your staff can use if you're running a house cleaning business to help with your marketing.
I hear him.
Am I having connection issues?
For a second,
I hear you, but it seems like Matt is not.
you froze for a second on my end, but it could have been
Okay.
just my end.
So this isn't about Maid Central. If you're not using Maid, it doesn't matter what software you're using. If you want to learn how to become more efficient and get better outcomes in your marketing, your sales, your customer service, this is a day-long workshop on that. We're also going to get you an account where you can build your own chat bot. You're not going to be an expert at it, but you're going to have a much deeper understanding of what it's all about. So, if you're running a house cleaning company, you'll be a more informed purchaser and consumer of this technology as it becomes more popular in the world. Let me get a message. And I will drop the link to that in chat as well. And there, we've paid our bills for today.
We've done all that we're supposed to do. Yay for us.
Yeah. Matt, how in the world are you?
I'm doing really good. Having a lot of kind of a fun day. We're putting up a big digital sign out front. Finally got electricity to that. We'll work on putting some signage on that and run that on Friday. We'll talk about the PODS thing. That's been a really positive experience to kind of see developing leadership all the way down to the technician level. If people are familiar with traction, that idea of like management, leadership management accountability, LMA, getting that down where everybody has a number in your organization and some of the really positive benefits of that. I love dropping in on those meetings and seeing just how positive the culture is, because we didn't do meetings except for once a quarter for years. COVID kind of changed it to like a quarterly meeting cadence for us, and we were delivering everything through Slack, and there was something lost there a little bit with that. So really good.
I guess just for the benefit of our viewers, because I know that we have people bouncing in and out that might not
Sure.
be with us on a regular basis. Could you, Matt, just share a little bit about your business and where you're at and what you guys are doing?
Sure. So Better Life Maids is St. Louis, Missouri. We're actually rebranding to Better Life Home. I bought the URL. That was a very expensive URL to buy, but
Okay.
we're going through a rebrand probably by the end of the year. But Better Life Maids is my wife and I's business. We founded it in 2008. Really have had a lot of growth since COVID, just kind of refocused on it. This quarter, we should do a little over $1 million this quarter, like 1,050,000, 1,060,000, something like that. So goal of about 4.4 this year. So we're on track for that. And growing about 30%. We're an all W-2 workforce. So solo model. We kind of adopted solos during COVID. We used to be cars and teams, and kind of pivoted like a lot of folks during like COVID, and that was a really strong pivot for us. But with that came a little bit of discombobulation of culture, like where we used to have like meetings every day where people picked up the cars and did that. We went to delivering like daily engagement videos via Slack, sort of like the stuff Liz used to do for years and years. And
But part of that was like social distancing and safety, right?
It is. It started that way, and even past that, it just became, that the workforce became kind of distributed more. We actually expanded our service area another 11 miles further because we were able to with the model, right? And that probably helped us grow to some degree, that we started going a little bit further than we did before. But it made it less convenient for people to pick up supplies. So we adopted this idea of pods, which is just small companies within the company. So we have 4 pods. We're about to start a 5th pod. They basically are just a field supervisor, which was most of us would call a trainer. They have more responsibility than a trainer, though. They They have this van that they have to stock. They hold a weekly meeting with their team where they resupply all of their team members. So all of their pod members come and meet. We like Lowe's and Home Depots because they have that covered drive-through if the weather's inclement, like, right? So we can go in there and buy some stuff if we need to, and then everybody can kind of just do a quick huddle underneath the roof if it's raining or something like that. So we've kind of adopted a lot of Lowe's and Home Depots as kind of our location, and they tend to be along kind of high traffic areas anyway where we want to be. So that's worked out really well. And the pod,
and your vans are well marked, they're wrapped, and everybody knows who's there, right?
we've definitely seen a lift, a brand lift from that. So we track keyword searches that are related to brand, like, so where someone searched Better Life Maids on its own. And prior to doing those vans, that was like around 400 a week. It's over 1,000 searches a week since we put out these vans on the road. It's not the only thing that's changed probably, but it's the most significant thing. So it's more than doubled our branded search. And yeah, Chris, about winter, it's just you're probably going to be a little cold. We these meetings 10 minutes. So it's kind of like, go fast. We did a couple on really cold days. We moved it inside. So right next to Home Depot, there's typically a McDonald's or a Chick-fil-A. On a couple of really cold days, we bought everybody coffee and, moved it inside really quickly. So that is a good question, Chris. There's a format to it where we do company headlines first, just anything that we want to get out. Everybody has to go over their numbers. So depending on how long they've been, there's 4 numbers that everybody goes. We take our data from Maid Central, and Tom's not going to love this, but we run it through another software called, what is it? I don't do it, so I don't know, but it automates it and turns it into a report for every employee, which is their scorecard for the week. So instead of looking at it in Maid Central, we send it to them as an email. So they have to go and read off in front of their team their score, their response rate, their efficiency, and their productivity. They have 4 numbers that they're responsible for. So we've pushed down that everybody has a number. And the coolest thing is, since we've done this, our company scorecard has been 98% or above every week since we've done this, which is a 1% increase, which doesn't sound like a lot, but to move
the math, you get up there.
Yeah.
To move from a 97 to a 98 is really, really hard. That means that less than 1 out of 100, really less than 1 out of 100 is a quality complaint. And to maintain that, less than 1 out of 20 can be less than a perfect score for a team member to maintain that score. So
actually, it's less than 2 out of 100, but we'll go with
that. Just the idea being, though, that it's so much harder to move from that level, and it kind of worked with in conjunction. We were working on a book from Scott Wozniak. I met him at Liz's thing. We implemented some of his stuff. Make Your Brand Legendary from Scott Wozniak. I'll give him a plug here. Good book. It's all about creating delight, is what we call it. He calls it. What's he call it, Liz?
I knew you were going to ask me. I'm like, what is that?
This is about raving fans. It's about raving customers, right?
Yeah.
That's it. He calls it raving fans. We call it creating delight internally in our business. But just the whole idea of pods, it's about a year in the making. Things start to move a little slower.
When did you implement this?
We started the idea over a year ago in July of last year during our annual meeting where we take everyone out of the field for a day and do a culture day. And we divided everybody up by the locations where they were, gave them a colored shirt. And that was the start of it. It was all right, we're going to form teams within a team. But the van's actually going out and we're actually doing this every day. And the supervisors running this started in March. So this is still, it was almost a year to kind of get all the pieces. The ship moves a little slower as you get a little bigger. You can't quite just nimbly do things. And we consider this to be a pretty big initiative. So we took our time and, but the initial fruit has been good. And what I also really love is there was a lot of pushback initially from everybody reading off their numbers. And we just kind of kept going with the idea. It's like, guys, think about how boring baseball would be without a score. It just makes it more fun for us all to have a score. If you went to a baseball game and they just were hitting and like you didn't know what was going on, it would be even more boring than it is. I mean, it's already not the most fun game. Like having a score makes it more fun. Or we talk about bowling a lot. Like go to a bowling alley and cover up the score. I don't think you would roll more than 10 pins before you got sick of it. There were 10 balls. I think you'd be over it pretty quick.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's great. Matt, so we're hearing a little bit about some good stuff that's coming from it. What's been hard? It's like you said, it's taken a long time. And
there was a week we lost 7 employees from it. That was hard. They were just not culture. They were culture misfires.
They didn't want to read their numbers every week.
Yeah, I mean there was some initial just like sorting out who would come to meetings every week and who was gonna really push back. But when we decided we were gonna do it, we were gonna do it, and we were willing to make that sacrifice and slow down a little bit to go fast longer, right? So we had, we weren't able to sell as much, and some of these were really great individual cleaning technicians, but when we decided that culture mattered and that it was going to be important to get that back on track, or at least the culture we want, right? Like there's always culture, whether it's the culture you want or not, right?
Right.
So when we decided that this was important, we did lose some folks. Some people jumped off the bus, and we hate to see anybody go, right? Turnover is tough, but
of course, especially good people.
Yeah,
they were what we think of as good people, right?
They were good cleaners in terms of like their numbers would be good. Like I'm a numbers person. Like their scores would have been good. Their efficiency, productivity, quality score, and response rate would have all been, 97 plus, 98 plus, like, high achieving techs at most companies, but they just did not want to come to a meeting or share a number. And we had some tough conversations with them and let them know, like, we're going to do this. So that was tough.
How about, have you had any numbers that have taken a hit, even if it's just a short-term hit? Maybe that you're going to take something.
Other than turnover when you lost 7 people.
Yeah.
Turnover was one. We didn't used to do meetings. So like, there's a little bit of a hit in revenue per job because we've got a false job in Maid Central. And I know Tom's going to fix that in the next year. So
it's on the roadmap.
It's already going to, I'm not worried. I was talking about how excited I was about that today. I was like, when they get that fixed, I'm going to be so excited, but I'm willing to live with that. I know that is a kind of a, just a little bit of a false number because we're putting in a meeting once a day. And it's really not that big of a deal, but
once a day or once a week?
One per day there's at least one meeting happening somewhere in town per day. That's right. So, and then they're at different places, but Maid Central helped us sort this out too, because we were able to create, satellite locations like in Maid Central that we can set that meeting up at with the location, and we can start their day from that location so that they can start collecting mileage from there and clock in. So Maid Central makes it possible too, through that. That's one number, but overall our efficiency has gone up in total because they're making less trips to the office. So that's, I think when that number gets cleaned up or when it gets removed, or if we can figure out a way to back it out, it probably in total is actually better.
And when you say efficiency, Matt, what are you talking about?
Let's get the language here. So when I'm talking about efficiency, I'm talking about in terms of the way Maid Central has coached it to me, which is that it's the amount of time that's productive time cleaning versus non-productive time, meetings, drive time, that sort of thing. So our efficiency is a little over 85%, which is, good for us because we came from a solo world when we were in the 70s originally. And I know there's people that are higher, but that's an improvement for us, 2 or 3% improvement. from where we were. Any other numbers that have taken a hit? I don't know. Like I'll have to look at our own eNPS score. I don't know if anyone's familiar. It's employee NPS, Net Promoter Score, where we survey our employees once a month. I'll check that and see if that's gone down. I don't think so.
There's no way. I would be so shocked if it was.
Yeah.
I mean, initially, yeah, but now here you are in May.
The one in March, maybe.
Yeah, that was a little rough, probably.
Yep. The first month, and March in St. Louis is pretty unpredictable. When we started this, so Chris asked about the weather. The weather in March in St. Louis, we had like a crazy storm in March, and like a really bad cold snap, and probably the coldest week of the year was like the first week we started this.
Oh, wow.
And it's really unpredictable in St. Louis. It can be 70 degrees and beautiful, or it can be the coldest week of the year, like 10-degree temperatures. And I always sell St. Louis so well, don't I, Tom? Like you're just
he just doesn't want any competitors out there. So he's
that's right. You're scaring us off.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think that probably worked in your favor, because every week after that is better. It's like, well, could be worse, could be March.
So when you roll this out, you've got 4 pods now, and you're building a 5th one. Did you just roll out all of them at one time, or did you just start with one and leave everybody else doing the traditional approach?
That's a good question. So there's one per day. So for the first 60 days, we had 2 managers coming to every pod meeting. Now, a manager still from the office still shows up at the pod meetings to help support them as best they can. One day there's a pod meeting where there's a day where there's a pod meeting in 2 different places. So I'll try and show up at one of them, and then another manager will come to the one in the city, which is closer to where she lives. So we still support these with some management functions. I like to come to them. I think it's really fun to see how healthy and engaging they are. And otherwise, I wouldn't probably get as much of a chance to interact with the cleaning techs. I really do enjoy going to them and meeting them, because I had been very separated from that for a long time. Like as you get bigger, like your role changes, and I go to every orientation and I meet every tech, but after that, I rarely would see them,
Wow. So you go to every orientation now?
If I'm in town, yeah.
That is cool. I bet these pod meetings feel more relevant, more important than your old team meetings when you were meeting at the office.
Yeah, they're just 10 minutes, and they're like, okay, I'll just kind of go through it just high level. Actually, the way they start is they start with a kind of engaging thing called a segue, or like they just ask like the best thing that's happened to you this week. It can be personal or work. And so everybody just kind of says something, and it's cool because you're getting to know people. Like, oh, my sister got married. I wouldn't have known that about somebody, and none of the rest of them would have known this stuff about their coworkers if they weren't coming to this thing. So I've heard some really cool things like going on in people's lives. Like somebody's mom got married and they were like the maid of honor in that wedding, and that was a cool experience for them. And I could go on and on. So I show up at these things and I learn a little bit more about my staff, because they do their little segue. Then they do their numbers. Then we do company news. And that's a great way to kind of cover any like initiatives that we have. And then we cover like a brief safety topic and briefly a culture topic. And the culture topic would just be something along the lines of, hey, like Sean got this great scorecard. This really demonstrated this cultural value of the company. I wanted just to share this with everybody. And then that's really it. Like if they have any questions, and then there's some time for them to restock and do one-on-ones. It's really fast, but feels very relevant and very important.
Does your manager curate some of this information and kind of put the agenda together?
Yes. So if there's Ari, who is one of the office managers, she puts this together every week, make sure that they have this, and then it's just distributed on a document on Google Drive, where they just open up the same folder, and then it's there every week. They know where to go. They all have a company email address with Google Drive, and go to that on. We've given out 3 iPads. I think we're still short one. So we're going to give each one of them an iPad to kind of do this. And then they can kind of share if there's a video or anything like that they want to do. I'll show you an example of something they might go over if I can find it. I'm not sure if this is an Acrobat or preview. Hold on. Preview. I'm not sure if this will come through.
When you're sharing your screen, click the button that says line feed to, or it doesn't say, I don't know what it says, but it does line feed. So whatever's going to your speakers will come to us too.
Oh, you know what? I think I just did, hold on. I'm not sure it's going to allow me to, unfortunately. Let's see. Google Chrome has lost permission to capture your screen. Fix it. Go to, yeah, I'm probably not going to be able to do it without logging out. So it's not a big deal. I don't want to, we'll just have to talk about it. I can actually, I'll email it to Liz or you real quick, Tom, and you can share it if you want to share it.
Yeah,
Sure.
send it over to Tom. He can share it easily. Otherwise, we'll be walking me through it also.
Yeah. We'll have we have a page, our employee resources page. That's probably the best way to do this. I'll just share the link to that, and we can just click on a few things there, and that they'll use for resources. So I'll just share that link with you.
Where do you house your resources? Do you house them in Maid Central?
Yes and no. So it's a page on our website that is a link back to this page. So when Tom gets it, so you can go, like, anyone can look at this. This is just Better Life Maids, employee resources. If there's one that says resources, I can't really read what your screen says there. Maybe creating delight. Is there something like that on there, a button?
Get instant price.
It's on those little, it's the little white buttons in there.
Oh, okay. Day 1, day 2. So that's training checklist. Communication channels.
Resources.
Oh, maybe under resources.
There it is. Creating delight, middle.
Click on this one.
Yep. Click on that. So this will be like maybe something they would go over. And this is based on, again, some of the stuff from Scott Wozniak, which is, it's basically an engine for how to create delight. It's like the standards. So the first thing with his thing, and it's not on here, would be like customer insight. You have to have a way to measure what your customer performance is. So if you're on Maid Central or you're using, Martha's system with Quality Driven, that would be an insight engine that you have into customer data. Like, are they happy? What's the general, feedback level? Scott came from Chick-fil-A, and one of the things that they're really proud of is they have a 97% that their orders are 97% of the time, which is really high for fast food if you really know much about that. And that's down to like the right silverware, right? McDonald's, you're lucky 90% of the time if you get your order right, not alone, but you got the right sauce or right. Chick-fil-A measures it down to, is the silverware right? 97% of the time they're good to go.
And if you want to make McFlurry, forget about it.
Yeah. That's a whole nother thing that he talks about. The
McBroken, yeah.
Broken.com if you really want to know. We're not going to have time to do that. But the idea of operational excellence is, like, we talk about this with our people. It's like that quality score. It's the standards that you set and that you hold to, right? That's operational excellence. There's a lot of ways that we all measure it with that, but that's not enough. Like, I talk around operational excellence. I think it gets talked a lot. I don't talk enough about, like, the idea of personalized service. Do you know we train our employees how to shake hands? Even though not all customers want to shake hands, but if they reach out, some millennials don't know what to do. Like, it's like the most awkward thing you'll ever see. Is it not even a millennial? It's Gen Z. A 20-year-old, when you reach out their hand to them, like, they're like, some just don't have any clue.
What am I supposed to do with that?
We practice that. We practice greeting them by name. Where do they find that information? On the work order notes. I'll use Sean as an example again. I'll say his name again because we have secret shoppers for our company customers that we give like a 20% discount to give us much more detailed feedback than the scorecards where they've got to go through like a whole thing. And I was reading one from Sean, and one of the things the customer said was not only did he greet her by name when he walked up, he greeted her cat by name. I can't remember what her cat's name was, but how cool is that? He had to have read the work order notes and personalized the service to the level. So inside of Maid Central, there's this section that says pets. He must have gone to that section, which is, it's all pretty laid out for you in a logical way. He must have gone to that, read the pet's name, and knew it when he walked in. I'm so bad at names, I'd be lucky to get the customer's name right. Like, but he knew Fluffy's name or whatever the cat's name was. And then, that's, just creating that really detailed scope of work, personalizing it to each customer. Within we call it their preferences, our processes. There's a page for that on our website if people want to read more about it. But
Matt, explain to me why knowing Fluffy's name was not a memorable moment instead of personalized service. I would think personalized service would be more about the service.
They're both. I mean, it's really kind of both. They kind of go over both, right? Okay. But personalizing the services, he wouldn't have been able to know that if we didn't capture those detailed notes, right? Yeah. And so we're personalizing the service. He made it a memorable moment just by being personable, right? By doing the personalized service. One of the things that's in memorable moments is our cleaning checklist, which is part of a process thing. But because we train them so much on leaving really great notes and really like fun notes and like with gratitude, they're very memorable. And a lot of our customers save them, and we'll come back and there'll be a stack of them because they liked the notes that our customers that our technicians leave. We do some surprise gifts, nothing expensive, things like these are Swedish dishcloths, like $1 a piece, something like that. We'll like leave one of these once a quarter. Every once in a while, we'll like during we didn't do it this year, but for the holidays, we might go get koozies and like leave a bunch of drop those off at customers that week. So if you had a cleaning holiday week, you might get a beer koozie, which is a thing in St. Louis. I don't know what they're called anywhere else. Is that the right term for them? The little foam thing?
That's what they're called in Charleston.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll do those during just little surprises. And then the staging, we spend more time training on staging than we do on the actual cleaning. Like we go over that like crazy. And I know, Liz, you can click on those manuals and you'll see what we do. You'll see a lot of Liz's stuff in our manuals. And I'm pretty sure the staging might have come out of a manual you might have given me years ago. Because that idea is not new. It's just we train on it. And so we're able to do, the reason this matters is we're able to kind of go over this stuff at the PODS meetings and bring up like a visual like this and, talk about it. And, we actually have these in poster form on the back doors. As you open the door of every pod, it's on the doors. We should probably make it a vertical poster because the doors are narrower than they are wide, but we have this poster in every pod vehicle that they can reference. So
okay. Linda wants to know, do you reward your staff member if they do well with the secret shopper?
I don't know that answer. I'm going to guess that we probably don't even let them know that they got secret shopped because we don't want to tip who they are, who the customers, who they are. So we probably should do something, but it would be a pretty short-lived secret shop if that was the case. But we do tend to rotate people through those houses, so you don't generally get them. That's the other deal about being a secret shopper is you don't get that consistent person. You've got to be willing to have different folks.
Okay.
I think, though, that it could work if you rewarded them like quarterly. Nobody would know when in the quarter they were at a secret shopper, right? And you would just only reward on what they did well.
Yeah.
right? The stuff that they missed, that could get you into trouble. They could figure out where they were, where they missed that thing. But what they did well, you're probably safe there.
It's true. I think that's a good question, and I think I'll bring that up. I like it.
Yeah, me too. It's a good question, Linda. So Matt, what would you say the shift is with your people now that they've started doing this? It's been going on a couple months, and obviously, actually, I guess it's not obvious. In my mind, it's obvious that they will have gotten on board and begin to really like the process. But what's the shift you're seeing?
So I'll say one thing. So we have one of these field supervisor positions open for the 5th pod. We had 8 qualified people apply. So we put out a full application. We used to have to beg people to be a trainer, but to be a field supervisor, we're going to have to make a tough call. Like, right. We talk about it every day. We're like, who are we going to pick? Right.
Do you have like a selection process where they're having to?
So interviews, some assessments, some objective things.
Write a 2,500 word paper on why you want
to. It's probably going to, all things like this are a bit subjective, but there's some objective things like, can you work overtime? Because this position is not like, you might need to, you might need to be the last one in the field every day because you have to push the last people through, right? You don't get to clock out early anymore. You have to be the last one in the field to be out there to make sure nobody's left behind, right? So that's pretty objective. And that weeded out a lot of folks because they have kids or things like that where they have to be off by 3:30. And we're pretty good about doing that for people. But so that's an objective one. The guarantee is $24 an hour for this, but some of our folks make more money than that. So they have to realize like it may be a little bit of a pay cut for some folks. So we have to like really understand what their motivations are. In general, it should be a pay increase, but
they clean some homes during the week too, don't they?
It's 90% production. It's a production job, and they're making really good money when they're training. So we have a very generous thing where they get 100% of the commission structure when they have a trainee. By week 2, they're cruising and they're making like $50 an hour probably. I mean, so the first week they're probably making they're making guarantee at 24, but by the end of week 2, that trainee is like producing a pretty good amount of work. And the trainee is probably at like 90% productivity or higher by the end of week 2. So they're double dipping on the total available pay, basically.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah, that's a really good deal.
Oh, yeah. So, and you get a company vehicle, I guess. Is that part of the deal?
You do get a company vehicle, so that's been good. I mean, to answer Liz's question is that like people really like want that job, right? So that's good. That's interesting, right? So, we had some folks that have been with us 7 years that had never raised their hand for anything, and they're like, "We want to do this," and so, like it's going to be a tough choice.
I love that. That if it wasn't a tough choice, it wouldn't be working as well.
Yeah.
Right? That's great.
How often are we picking between bad alternatives?
It's true. All right. So can you read this, Matt, or should we read it?
So the question, what determines initiating a new pod, is mainly revenue driven, a combination of things, customer service, that's geographic location. We think ideally that it's 10 to 12 techs per pod leader. And honestly, like if you were to do this differently, you could probably just have one van and meet the pods and like you could keep the costs down.
Yeah.
We're looking at the pod as the vans as a pretty solid branding exposure piece. So, if a vehicle all in costs us $1,500 a month with gas, insurance, payment, whatever, we're okay with that in terms of, our size and what we think that can do in terms of eyeballs on us every day. But you could get away with just doing one van and having a manager drive that around and not giving a vehicle out. There's ways to cut the costs on this and still get some of or most of the benefit. But so for us, we believe 10 to 12 is probably a good sweet spot because we want that supervisor to be able to drop in and visit one team member a day, right, that they're going to go push somebody through, and we want to rotate it through so that once every 2 weeks they can visit everybody in their pod. If possible, they'll go out and actually work one-on-one with everyone on their pod over the course of a 2-week period. Ideally, you'd be able to do that once a week and spend some time together, but we think that every 2 weeks will be sufficient.
So they're able to do that and still spend 90% of their time in production.
Yeah, because they'll get done with their two scheduled jobs with their trainee, and then on week 2, the trainee's driving their own car and meeting them, and so then they'll go and push somebody through that's kind of running behind, and do a third, and basically help out.
And I know you pay revenue share, so does that
they get that revenue share, and hopefully, so most of the time people ask for help. So we have a Slack channel where it's like, I don't know if it's called help or need help. I don't know what it's called, but it's
help channel.
Yeah, just help channel. And so people ask for help. And so we've got somebody that's kind of in charge of pairing people up, and they try and pair people up that are in the same pod for help, and try and pair the supervisor to people that are in their pod. So it's not perfect. It doesn't always work that they're even doing people with their pod. Sometimes they go and help, somebody else, but generally we can match that up, and it's a revenue split on that job too. So we're seeing most of our field supervisors making $1,200 a week. It's a pretty well paying position for a cleaning position. We're trying to make it a very attractive position.
Yeah, that's decent. So Matt, you were talking about some of the benefits, and the ones that I captured that seem to be the best currently are the quality, the culture. You're having a stronger culture, and then it sounds like you're having more engagement as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I think more people are seeing a future in the company. Like the whole, if people want to play around with that resources page, there's a career ladder on there, and people are asking more just about like, well, how do I make advanced tech? How do I become a master? They're asking more questions about how to move up the career ladder even before they're even qualified to be a field supervisor. So engagement is a really great way to describe it. I mean, people like, I don't know that I'd ever heard that question as much as I have recently. How do I move up the career ladder?
Because you have a career ladder and everybody starts at the same place, and that's part of the culture as well.
Yeah.
We talked about that yesterday in our Foundations of Success Series program.
Yeah. People do love having a place to go, and it's like you hear that all the time, but you're actually living it now.
We've been trying it for a while. It just, I will tell you, like I said, there was the hard stuff of like, some lost folks during this process, and I'll tell you what, my wife gets on me about this because I'm the softest person. When anybody quits, I'm always evaluating it. Like, what did we do wrong? And I'll have a meeting about every person that quits. That was a long week when we lost 7 people in a week, because I want to talk about every one of them and be like, what happened? What was the
what's the underlying cause?
The root cause. What was the root cause?
Yeah, I like to know that all too.
So with this pod approach, you're adding a 5th pod. 10 to 12 people, makes sense to add a pod. So when you start a new pod, do they start off with just one person, or do you split some people off the other 4 pods to kind of?
Yeah, so our city pod is a little overweighted right now. It's got about 16 people. So we'll probably pull some off of that. And then we've got a pod that is kind of spread over too big of a geographic area. So we'll kind of peel that one apart. So yeah, we'll probably take from those 2 and then add some folks.
And build all 3 of them back up at the same time.
Yep, that's kind of the idea. And then we have the West County pod that could use a supervisor. So that's also part of the consideration set for somebody applying for the position, is that they might have to work in a geographic region that's not as close to their home start that they're doing now to kind of run one of these things.
So Matt, who would you recommend that the might want to try this pod system? Who might it be good for?
I think once you're to the point where you're doing solos and you've somehow lost a little bit of that.
Well, what if they've always been solo?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think then you might not know what you've lost. I
Yeah.
know we know what we lost when we were teams, and like it was obvious that we had lost a little something.
Yeah.
In terms of culture and I don't know. That's a good question, Liz. What do you think? What do you?
Well, I'm wondering if it might make good sense for anybody that is having solos once their company is, maybe at the 15 employee mark or better. Might be a great place to start considering it, because you're still having the same issues or non-issues, however you want to talk about it, that if you have solos, whether you recognize them or not. Just because you don't see what's happening doesn't mean it's not happening. Yeah. And there's some stuff that you can give to people live that you can't give to them.
You just gave me a thought too, though. It's also about giving opportunity that, for people to come up in the company too.
Yeah.
And Tom, you asked a question about like how much is production. We've talked about like every one of these folks that is one of these positions should have eventually should have a secondary kind of thing that they're a champion of, which might be just a couple hours a week that they do. Might be like one might be the safety champion, one might be a culture champion and is helping with the Dream Manager program. That might become a bigger role over time, right? Than that. But
yeah,
we want to basically expand their management functions and give them, maybe not a full-time other job, but a safety champion would just be a couple hours here and there, like looking for opportunities for us to be a little bit better, doing some research.
Be like having a committee.
Yeah. We haven't thought of all the ways that they can kind of expand their role over time, but more and more of it, they, as we grow, and maybe it expands out that they have 15 people so that we can afford to have them be a little less production, but there's a sweet spot there somewhere though, where you lose the ability to connect with people one-on-one. Yeah. We don't want to spread that too thin.
Do you find that you're expanding your geographic footprint with pods?
We did. I mean, solos, we increased our geographic footprint. And then we went out into St. Charles County when we decided we were going to do this last year. We went a little bit further, which is 30 miles from my office is St. Charles County. We would not be that far. We were only 15 miles circle or less before COVID, and we have expanded greatly. And, if I were to pull all the zip codes and things like that, I think that has a lot to do with the fact that we've doubled in size over the last 2 years as we've added a lot of geography. So
to Liz's question, who might this pod system be good for? Somebody who wants to expand their geographic presence. Because, I could see the idea you can get bigger and people working from the home. That's great. But if they're having to deadhead it back to the office once a week for supplies, that kind of, you have to pay for that too. Whereas with the pods, theoretically, you might be able to go a meaningful amount out further.
I mean, eventually, our thoughts is that we could probably, set up a field supervisor in a new area and ship most everything to them.
Yeah.
And we might not be able to do laundry the way we do. We might have to adjust some things. I mean, shout out to Robin Murphy and maybe doing those paper products that she likes, those really expensive
single wipers.
Yeah. But maybe that makes sense to expand versus, I have a laundry plant downstairs. If anyone's visited, we've got 2 commercial laundry machines. That's a full-time job just doing laundry for 60 people or 50, whatever, how many people we have, 55 people. That's a job doing all that,
But your pod leader only really has to come to the office once a week, right? Flip out towels and pick up new chemicals and other products.
They do twice, because they'll do, even though it's not a pod meeting, they'll have a supply drop where they're available. and let people come and meet them at usually at their first house. They'll let them know, hey, I'm going to be here if you want to drop by. So they will make themselves available a second day of the week, but not an official meeting. So they sometimes come twice.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if it makes sense, but I mean, you might even be able to move into other cities if it's an hour or two drive and still make that work.
I think that there's like some hub and spoke models that work for that. We'll explore it. I think there's potential to go into. There's about 500,000 people across the river in Illinois. We haven't really wanted to go into Illinois for a variety of reasons, different labor laws, different work comp laws. It's a little more complex there than Missouri. I mean, Missouri is the easy button for business. So, those of you that work in more complex states, like we haven't learned all that stuff yet. There'd be a learning curve to go to Illinois for sure.
Can I switch gears for a minute? I'm just really curious about the rebranding. You mentioned earlier that you're rebranding, adopting a new name for your business. What's the thinking there?
There's a couple of things. So Better Life Home potentially could be the hub of a larger system if for thinking 10 years down the road. Like, it could be an all home services hub, right? Like that's not on my immediate radar or why we're doing it. It's also, we've moved away from the word maid internally to technician and to, really in all of our language with them it's all internal technicians. So initially it's going to be an internal rebrand. Their uniforms are going to be the first things to change. Some internal swag. That's really the first stuff. Then the URL, then we'll rebuild the website. But I guess another shout out to Robin Murphy. I'm not saying maids is a dirty word. I just think it doesn't portray the image that we want for the future. If I'm looking 10 years out in the future, it's not the brand that I think gets us where we want to be. So, let's start the process now. It's going to take years to change. I mean, we're going to do this. We're not going to do like rip off the wraps we have. And we're not doing that kind of rebrand. It's going to be iterative. It's going to be a slow change, and people will probably still know us as Better Life Maids for years. You guys ever heard of St. Louis Bread Company? You have them in your town, whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
Panera Bread.
Yeah. I'm like, I know this. Yeah, Panera.
Oh.
So that didn't work. When they went into Atlanta, they're like, nobody wants to go eat at St. Louis Bread Company in Atlanta. And they got murdered because there's
The bread would get stale by the time it got there.
So I'm not saying it's quite that thing, but you know what? They're still called in St. Louis Bread Company. So
do you have Panera there?
We do have them. Like the brand inside the store and all the cups, it says Panera, but the outside signage still says St. Louis Bread Company.
Okay.
So, some of this stuff, it'll take time, and we're not in a rush to change it, but we think it's a stronger brand for where we believe we're going to go in the future and where home services might intersect. Bigger picture, I think that the residential cleaning services can play a bigger role in the home services. I'm not going to rush to do that. It's expensive to be the pioneer and to try and do that, right? Like we've got to be a lot bigger before we're there. But I think we are the most important piece of a home services strategy roll up that could be, massive. And I want to have some say in the right and having the right brand that maybe makes us more attractive for that someday.
You don't know how it all's going to unfold, but you just want to leave as many doors open as possible.
Yeah.
And one thing that came into my mind, Matt, as you were talking PODS and then also the rebrand, et cetera, is a lot of people are talking about reading the book, 10X is better than 2X. And some of the conversations are around, well, like, how do you 10X things? Like they say that just going after 10X changes your thinking. Like you start thinking about different things and doing things in a different way without recognizing that that's what you're doing. But it looks a lot like what you're doing, right? Not Not just
Maybe.
changing everything, but
Think of it like this. If you grow 30% a year, that sounds like a big number. Most of us aren't used to doing that. But if you can find a way to create sustainable growth at 30% a year, you will double every 2.8 years, and you will be 10x the size you are today in less than 10. Right?
Yep.
So my company, my thinking is we might be a 40 or $50 million company in 10 years. As long as we don't blow each other all up and the world keeps turning, I think there's a high it's a high likelihood that we'll get there, you know, that we are building the foundation, the road to do that. But you don't do it overnight. It's iterative. It's like scaling. Everyone wants to go so fast, but you have to build the road. You have to build the foundation. And I couldn't even imagine if we just all of a sudden tomorrow we're a $10 million company. We don't have some of the pieces in place yet. In 2 years, as we approach there, we'll have learned some lessons along the way. As much as I want to go really fast and I want it all right now, I've got to learn the lessons and I've got to get there the right way. And that's just part of the process.
Yeah.
It's the blocking and the tackling. It's getting the processes in place. A lot of times we get confused between growth and scale, and they're two different things. And if you want to scale your business, your processes have to evolve, and you have to be really, really, really good at something as opposed to okay at a lot of things.
This is a great place to wrap up.
We have to do another show on that, Matt. We got to come back. We need to talk about that.
I think it'd be great. I mean, that was a tough way to kind of end, but I think it's a great book for everyone to read. And I'll finish on this. It's like, this is a really tough industry, but just imagine, right? Like, you've already 10x'd your business. We all, like, my business was a $500,000 business at some point, right? And we're coming up on 5 million. We've 10x'd. We've already done it once. You were a $100,000 business. Now you're a $1 million business. You've already 10x'd it once. You just didn't really think of it that way. So you've already learned how to do it. You just got to keep doing it. And sometimes it's a grind, but there is a path.
Matt, thank you. This was really good, and I appreciate you sharing your playbook with us. I mean, you're doing some innovative stuff there, and I think what you're doing here is going to be an example that's going to be adopted by other players in the industry. And you know, we might be 10 years now talking about Matt Ricketts, the father of PODS.
I really hope a lot of people do follow along and do pick up some things, because I think the thing that really excites me is that as we've grown, I've seen a lot of other people like right there with us, and we're chasing some other people too. So it's that drive where we're all kind of going together that makes this more fun. It's not fun to be all on your own. You gotta bring some people with you. And so we're chasing some people, and there might be some people chasing us, but we're all going the same place.
Well, with that, we're at the top of the hour, maybe a smidge past. So we're going to go ahead and call it a wrap for today. Again, if you want to learn how to improve your sales, hit Liz up. And I guess really you could probably get a flight tonight out to Fort Collins, right?
No more live people. Sorry, y'all. Live stream only at this point. Somebody just signed up live stream like while we're on this call.
Well, there you go.
So, yeah.
I'll drop the link again in chat. Thank you again, Matt. It's good talking. We'll do
Always
this again
love to talk to you, Matt. Thanks so much.
Thank you guys.
We'll be back next Wednesday, 5 o'clock Eastern. Bye-bye.
Bye.